"Rescue?" Wilhelm cried. He set his chair down on the ground and shook his gel bars as if to remind them of their next obstacle. Kenneth reached for the bars. Using his incredible strength, he bent them apart, wrestling with them until there was an opening big enough for Wilhelm to step through. Just then, Sabrina heard Nottingham's angry voice. "The prisoner is escaping, you fools!" he shouted. His furious bellowing was drowned out by the approaching feet of what sounded like 4 dozen guards. "We've got to get out of here, now," Granny said. Kenneth stepped to the back wall, pulled back his fist, and slammed it into the concrete. It crumbled, shaking the rafters. A few cinder blocks completely collapsed, exploding the outside and freedom to the group. One more thump sent a spray of concrete and strewed all over the room, but when the dust settled, there was a hole big enough for a 7-foot, 300-pound man to step through. "Everyone out!" Granny cried as she helped Sabrina and Daphne through the hole. Wilhelm and the old woman followed. Before Mr. Kenneth could get through, Sabrina heard a sinister voice from outside her station. "You do realize that breaking a prisoner out of jail is a big no-no," Nottingham said, and as she heard Mr. Kenneth roar in pain. The dust billowing out of the hole prevented her from seeing what was happening, but she knew he had been hurt badly. A moment later, Nottingham's ugly form stepped through the hole. "I really should arrest you, Grims, but I have a better way of solving our problem," he said as he reached for the crossbow strapped to his back. He loaded it with a steel arrow and leveled it at Wilhelm's chest. "One shot changes everything in this town, and though I know the throngs of people eager to see Wilhelm swing from the gallows will be disappointed, having their freedom will more than make up for missing the show." And then he pulled the trigger. Chapter 10. It seemed to Sabrina that the arrow sailed across space in slow motion. She wondered what it would be like to suddenly not exist. Would they just blink into nothing, or would it feel like dying? But the arrow never reached its target. Instead, there was a loud quaking thump, which knocked everyone to the ground. As they scampered to their feet and realized Wilhelm was unharmed, they were confronted by the source of the thump. Baba Yaga had arrived in her horrifying house. The old crone was leaning out of her window with a glowing ball in her hand. It lit up like a firecracker, and a blast of red energy hit Nottingham in the chest as he turned to face the witch. "I want my wand!" she shouted. The witch's magic tossed Nottingham several yards and slammed him onto the ground. But a second later, he still had the presence of mind to scamper behind a tree. "I don't know what you're talking about." The monstrous house raced toward him. One of its legs snatched the tree out of the ground, roots and all, leaving the sheriff vulnerable and panicked. Wilhelm seemed quite disturbed by what he was seeing. He cried out something in German, but his message was clear. Sabrina's great-great-great-great-grandfather was completely freaked out. "Baba Yaga's not going to be fooled for really long," Charming said as he rode up on his stallion. Uncle Jake was right behind him, hovering on a flying carpet. "He's right. We should go." Daphne nodded. "I agree. That storm is coming mucho faster." "We can't leave. Mr. Kenneth is still in there," Sabrina said. Just then, the old man stepped through the hole. He held his hand to his left eye as blood seeped down his wrist. "Old friend," Granny gasped. "It is nothing," the old man said, but his voice was pained. Granny removed the handkerchief from her handbag and gave it to the old man. He held it to his wound and ushered everyone around the building to the street. "We have to get to the boat." The family raced the 3 blocks to the town marina. There they found Puck waiting impatiently. "It's about time," Puck said. "I'm dying of hunger." "Is the boat ready?" the woman asked. "Naturally," Puck replied as he gestured to Wilhelm's tiny rowboat. Uncle Jake helped Granny roll into it, and the girls wore him and finally himself. "You know what to do?" Uncle Jake asked the ferry boy. "No sweat, this is going to be simple," Puck crowed as he shot into the sky. He had barely gotten aloft when he was nearly knocked out of the sky by a cannonball. "They're shooting us!" Daphne exclaimed. Uncle Jake took the oars and rowed with all his might. He streaked across the river right toward the ship, while more cannon shots slammed into the water around them. "They must think we're going to attack," Granny said. Wilhelm leaped from his seat and waved at the boat. His excitement nearly capsized them, and Sabrina had to brace herself to keep from falling in the river. His wild gestures made her nervous. It seemed like he was just making them an easier target. There were 2 more shots when the explosion stopped altogether, giving them smooth sailing to the side of the ship. Uncle Jake and Wilhelm helped Granny aboard, and the girls scampered up on their own power. Once aboard, Sabrina was stunned by the people who surrounded her. Nearly everyone she had ever met from the town was there. Briar Rose, Mr. Seven and the rest of the 7 dwarfs, Miss White, Beauty and her husband, the Beast, and even some old enemies like Jack the Jankler and Rumpelstiltskin. She stepped in front of her family and clenched her fists, prepared to fight their way off the ship, but then it dawned on her that no one knew who they were. Wilhelm said something in German that seemed to calm the nerves of the passengers. "What did he say?" Sabrina asked. "He said that he is okay, but there has been an odd turn of events," Rennie explained. Then she turned to the rest of the crowd. "I know many of you are confused. You set sail for America expecting to find a relatively unsettled plot of land. Well, you found America. You just didn't show up at the right time." "What are you talking about, old woman?" Beast growled. "And who are you?" "My name is Rhoda Grimm, and the town you see before you is Ferryport Landing. It's your home, or at least it will be. You slipped through a tear in time. You are more than 200 years in the future." Several people cried out in shock, while others rushed to the sides of the ship to gawk out at the little town. Wilhelm was taken against his will, but we have returned him, Granny continued. "Did you say your name is Grimm?" Snow White asked as she stepped from the crowd. She was as beautiful as ever. "Yes," Granny replied. "This is my son Jacob and my granddaughters, Sabrina and Daphne." The ever-afters on the boat swirled with approval. Our Savior's family lives on," a woman said from the back of the crowd. Sabrina peered back and was stunned to find it was the Queen of Hearts cheering for her. "Times sure have changed," she grumbled. "Are we friends?" Miss White asked the family. Granny smiled. "You're one of our best friends, Snow. I wish that I could explain more, but there's no time. We have to get you back where you belong." Suddenly, Daphne began to vibrate again. "That will be any minute now," the little girl said. "We need to get off this boat unless we want to join them in the past," Sabrina added. "Now," Puck said as he buzzed the boat. "Do I do it now?" "Just a moment, Puck," Granny said, and turned back to the passengers. "It was a pleasure to meet you all, but we really must go." Uncle Jacob took Briar Rose by the hand. "I'll see you in 200 years. The beautiful princess looked confused, but gave him one of her goofy smiles. Uncle Jake led Granny back to the side of the ship and did his best to help her down. It wasn't as easy as climbing aboard. "Let my friends help you," Cinderella said. She took 3 small brown mice from her pocket and set them on the ground. Sabrina watched as they morphed into full-grown men, and once the change was complete, she immediately recognized them. They were Malcolm, Alexander, and Bradford, the men who worked on her radio show. They helped the family off the ship and down to the rowboat. "Now," Puck said impatiently. "Now," Uncle Jake cried, once they were safely rowing back toward the shore. Selina watched as Puck pulled the pins on his glove grenades and launched them onto the deck of the ship. They exploded not in a wave of disgusting filth like usual. These grenades were filled with a soft, pink dust that covered the passengers. Sabrina recognized it as forgetful dust, and though she knew it was necessary to wipe the memories of everyone on the new beginning so that history couldn't be altered, she still regretted the opportunity they were giving up. They had a chance to change some of the things that made life in Ferryport Landing so hard. Maybe they could have stopped the uprising that led to the barrier's construction. Maybe they could have changed the hatred so many of the ever-afters felt for the Grimms. The possibilities were endless. She watched as the passengers stood on the sides of the boat, glassy-eyed. The Beast and his wife, the Frog Prince, Little Bo Peep, Morgan Le Fay, Cinderella, and her mice assistants looked back at them, and the ship was gone, swallowed into the nothingness of the storm that hovered above. But in its wake, Sabrina finally understood who had stolen the magical items. "I just solved the case!" she shouted, leaping out from her seat. She was so excited she fell overboard into the cold water. Uncle Jake snatched her by the sleeve and pulled her back into the boat. "Sabrina, are you okay?" "I've solved the mystery," she said as she wiped water out of her eyes. "I know who stole the magic items. It was Cinderella." "I don't believe it," Daphne gasped. "She came to her house with her husband, Tom. She must have brought her mice friends, and they snuck into the witch's bags," Sabrina said in a rush. "That's how they got into everyone's homes. They went as mice and turned to men to steal the objects. You saw them on the boat. They can shapeshift." "That explains the locker at Pfeffer Kuchenhauser's office," Daphne added. "She must have stuck a bag inside and trapped one of them in there. He turned to a man and was able to kick the door open from inside. But why? Why would Dr. Cindy need to steal this stuff?" Uncle Jake asked as he rowed the little boat to shore. "You heard her husband. The radio show is going national. They are going to be rich. They don't need to steal anything." "I say we ask Dr. Cindy ourselves," Grandfather said as they reached the dock. Mr. Candace was there, waiting to help everyone back on the shore. His handkerchief was stained through with blood from his eye injury. "Baba Yaga has nearly demolished the police station," Mr. Candace informed them. "It won't be long before she moves on to her next target." "Not to worry, old friend," Granny said as Uncle Jake helped her out of the boat. "I think we know who has her wand." The family rushed down the street to the radio station. On top of the building was a huge metal tower with a red light, and above that there was another of the frightening time storms. They pushed through the doors of WPFR and headed for the stairs where a sign read "Studio, 3rd floor." But before they reached the first step, they were stopped in their tracks by a huge security guard. "Can I help you?" he said, though his tone sounded not at all helpful. "We need to talk to Dr. Cindy," Granny Rhoda explained. "Well, she's on the air right now, so I suggest you give her a call." "You don't understand," Sabrina said. "She's doing something very dangerous." "Like listening to callers whine about their miserable lives," the security guard said sarcastically. He reached down and turned the knob on her radio. Dr. Cindy was indeed on the air, trying to help a woman understand that she would never find happiness in food. "Now, like I said, she's busy," the security guard said roughly. He opened the door and ushered everyone back outside. "Something's going on up there," Daphne said. "I can feel it." The magic detector was nearly bouncing out of her hand. "Maybe Mr. Candace could eat the guard," Puck said. Candace shrugged as if that wasn't such a bad idea. "I don't think we need to eat anyone," Sabrina said, turning to Puck and studying the arsenal of glob grenades he had strapped to his chest. "Got any of those with real glob in them?" Puck smiled. Uncle Jake propped the door open just a crack. Puck pulled the pin on a grenade and Sabrina tossed it inside. A second later, there was a loud splat, and a security guard came running outside, covered in funky-smelling goo. "I'm going to be sick," he cried, rolling around on the ground. With the guard incapacitated, the family rushed back inside the station and hurried up the steps. Moments later, they stole through a door with a sign above it that flashed "On air." Dr. Cindy was sitting at a desk with a big microphone hanging from the ceiling above her. She was wearing a pair of headphones and sipping on coffee while she talked to her caller. She looked up in shock when the group barged in and leaned into her mic. "Folks, I think we need to break for a commercial. We'll be right back with more of this Dr. Cindy show in just a moment." The on-air light went dim and Dr. Cindy took off her headphones. "What's going on?" That seems to be the end of this video and probably the last one for tonight. Anyways, goodbye.